What's up everyone? My name is Marie, welcome to my channel, and welcome to another speed build. So for today's video, you may notice that the shell of the build is already there, and we're essentially just starting the roofing right away. And that's because today I am working on my very own shell challenge that we are currently doing. I usually host, or I actually always host my shell challenges over on Twitch. And that's where I'm hosting this one as well. And yeah, I obviously had to give it a go myself as well. I usually tend to create shells that are a little tricky or that have some sort of like a weird part to it or weird overhangs, or I don't know. I just try to make them a little challenging. And this one's kind of challenging as well. So obviously I had to give it a go myself, and I already covered it up, but this one was for my 3-year Twitch streamiversary especially, and so I had to somehow create a little 3 as part of the shell. So I did that over on the left side. I already hit it like very sneakily with beams, so you can't really tell anymore. It was the first thing that I covered because I was like, I need to get this out of the way. I don't know what to do with this 3. A lot of people were saying that it looked like a fork, which they're not wrong. So technically it's a little fork or 3 or whatever, whatever you think it looks like. So yeah, I obviously had to go ahead and cover that because it was horrible, and I wanted to have this still be a cute build and look somewhat normal. So I was trying to do my best to sort of hide it and incorporate it in the build, and I did that. So yeah, I feel like it worked out. And as I basically started on this shell, I literally did not have any idea what I wanted to do with it just yet. That's usually what happens when I do shell challenges. I kind of just plunk it in my game and I try to roof it, and then I'll let the ideas come to me. And I was doing this over on Twitch, so we were kind of brainstorming about it together. At first, when I first placed it, like going off of the shape of the shell in general, I thought it was going to be something contemporary modern and like very sleek and just, you know, very, very modern. And then actually, well, it happened to turn into more of like a mid-century / retro type of a build. And that's because of the roofing that I did in the very first couple of minutes already. It just ended up looking like some sort of retro, weird sort of home. So that's what I went with. But instead of turning it into a residential, like an actual family home, which this would have been perfect for, by the way, it is a really cool house that I feel like would be really cool as some like weirdly shaped, cool, like mid-century or retro type of family home. I think that would be really fun. But I didn't really feel like building a full-on family home for this one. I don't know why, but I really was in the mood again to build some sort of a small business. So that's what I ended up doing. And this one does have an apartment on the 2nd floor. So it is a live-in business, I guess, with a little residential area on the 2nd floor, which is really small. It literally only has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. You could have up to 2 Sims live there if they're a couple, that is. So yeah, that would work out. And then I was definitely imagining for the Sim to be like the Sim that lives in the apartment obviously runs the place downstairs. And the small business downstairs is a cafe / vintage secondhand sort of thrift store is what I was going for. So I thought that was such a fun idea, especially combined with the retro aesthetic of the exterior of the build. I felt like some sort of like retro, or at least retro inspired, like vintage sort of thrift store would be really cute, especially combined with a cafe. You may or may not know this about me, but I just really enjoy building cafes in general, and whenever I do end up building a small business, I usually will include a coffee bar somehow, somewhere, because I just feel like it always looks so cute. And I always think for gameplay as well, it is just such a fun spot to kind of like travel to. If there is a coffee bar, I don't know, it obviously depends on what else there is to do, but I feel like coffee bars always just add a fun element when it comes to gameplay. It immediately makes it like a cute spot to take Sims on dates or little get-togethers with friends or whatever. I just always feel like it is really, really cozy. So that's what I did. We have a cafe / vintage secondhand thrift store. I'm still not sure what to call it exactly, but that's essentially what this ends up being. So for the business activities, I guess you could say I was thinking of drinking and like ordering coffee and tea, and also buying, like browsing and buying items, essentially are the 2 main business activities I want to say for this one. I'm not sure what other things you could add. I mean, you can always add like the social things like be friendly or, tell jokes or whatever, or maybe be flirty. I'm not sure how well that's going to go, but those sorts of social kinds of interactions, you could always add those. We do also have a little picnic area outside, so maybe that can add something fun as well. For the vintage store part of the business, I did use the high school years clothing racks, like the thrifty clothing racks, which as a small business, I don't think they can actually buy items from those racks, but someone in my community did tell me that those racks still work off of when you're like placing them in a lot that's not a thrifty. They still work in the sense that you can like browse and put together outfits, I believe. So that is a really fun, maybe we actually have an activity for businesses that has something to do with like outfits, putting them together. I'm not actually sure, but if that's the case, then that would be a really cute little additional activity for them to do as well. So yeah, for the rest of the build, I'm just really happy with how the exterior came together. Usually shell challenges are, you just never really know what you're going to end up with because the shape is usually a little tricky and different, and obviously you can't change it. Let me explain real quick, by the way, what a shell challenge actually is. You can actually, like, the rules for it depends on the shell challenge in and of itself. Like, you can obviously make and create your own rules as you see fit. For my shell challenges, the rules are usually very simple. I create the shell of a house, so the exterior walls. You download it and turn it into whatever you want. So the only rule that's actually really important is that you cannot delete or add on to the exterior walls. That's essentially the only rule. You have to work with the shell as is. You can add half walls to it or fences. You can change the wall height if you want to, but you can't like add rooms to it or change the shape of the shell itself. And then obviously you can create a floor plan so you can put in interior walls, obviously, but you can't like add basements or attics or anything like that. You can't do that. Essentially, it's just very simple. The shell has to stay the same. Apart from wall height, you can change the wall height, and then you can plonk it on any lot where it fits, obviously, and then you can turn it into whatever type of build you want to build and just like be creative and have fun with it. That's, I feel like, the most important part. So yeah, that's essentially all the rules for the shell. I didn't really have a specific theme for it other than I added a little 3 to it because it was for my 3-year stream anniversary, of course, over on Twitch. So that was kind of like the only theme, but if you're going to participate in this, you don't actually have to like make it festive or whatever. You can literally do whatever you want. What I always do include is a couple, usually just one, but for this one it was 3. I guess the theme for this one is 3. So I added 3 required objects for this one, and that came back to bite me because they are really annoying objects. I chose objects that I either never use or were kind of in that same theme of 3. So what I chose, they're always base game objects, so everyone can use them. So what I chose for this one was the base game light, which looks like balloons. So there's like 3, it's like a standing lamp and it has like 3 balloons, sort of like light fixtures. I'm not sure how to better explain it than that. I did end up using that upstairs in the apartment. I also added the fishbowl from base game because I'm always like using that fishbowl somewhere in my builds. Well, not always, but whenever I build family homes or like cozy builds, I will usually include that fishbowl somewhere because I just think it's really cute. So I added the fishbowl as a required item, and then I also added the ugliest chair in the entire game, in my honest opinion. It's a base game desk chair and it just looks so weird. I think it's an unlockable still, but I feel like I did include the items in the shell, so if you download it off the gallery and you place it furnished, then the items will be there and you can just have them sit there. But you can kind of sometimes get a glimpse of the chair. I placed it in in the room off to the side here now that we're starting on the interior. It's the ugliest desk chair in the game. It has some sort of like laser eye attached to like the back of it. It is so weird. Thankfully, it comes in a pink swatch, which doesn't necessarily make it better, but it did make it, I guess, a little bit more cutesy and a little bit more like easier to use, I guess. It is horrible, but I actually ended up placing that chair in the employee only area as like I don't know, a desk chair by the table that maybe the boss's chair. I'm not exactly sure. It is a meme. But for this vintage store, I just kind of felt like I could still get away with the storyline of maybe that is like a really old, super cool, vintage, rare, difficult to find sort of chair that's like a collector's item, and they have it. Like the person that owns this store has it, and they have it in their employee only area as like a desk chair. I don't know. I feel like that sort of makes sense for the storyline, like the overall, I guess, story around this build. So yeah, but it is a horrible piece of furniture, and I'm so sorry I included it in the shell challenge. But there it is. You know, it's a challenge for a reason, and I feel like it's kind of fun to just add those weird items. You can also see the balloon light just kind of floating around in the build for now. I was trying to use it here in the main area of the cafe and store, but I actually ended up using it upstairs in the apartment, which I ended up having the perfect spot for it there, and it really works out. And it looks like a designer retro piece in the apartment almost, the way I placed it there. So that really ended up working out, which was really nice. But here you can see we have started on the interior of the cafe, and it's pretty self-explanatory when you first walk through the front door here, which I loved using that door, that more industrial looking door from Businesses and Hobbies. I ended up using a lot of items from that pack in here, by the way. But yeah, when you first walk through the door, there is just like the cafe is right there, the store is right there in the little back area of the room. And yeah, I set it up spaciously because I was definitely keeping gameplay in mind for this one. I just feel like a lot of Sims usually will visit cafes, and just there will be a lot of routing around the coffee bar itself for Sims that are like continuously ordering coffee and baked goods and whatnot. So I set it up a little bit more on the spacious side of things, which I think worked out really nicely in here. And I was definitely trying to sort of consistently use or go for a 70s / retro, I guess more 60s inspired color scheme. And the Businesses and Hobbies items and colors are actually perfect for that. You can see that I use those wallpapers in here. Those are all Businesses and Hobbies. The bright yellow over on the left side for the co-working space, and then the dark brown here in the main part of the cafe, I just think is so fun. And then combined with some other colors, some brighter colors, I had to use that rug in here. Then obviously the little tables that are like a light green type of color, and then the chairs that I used with that really cool pattern. Is that a houndstooth pattern? I don't think so. I think it's a different type of pattern. I'm just gonna call it checkered, which I know is not what it is, but it's I'm not sure what the actual word for it is, but I really like that pattern. I used a matching love seat by the window as well, and I don't know, I just really like how the vibes of this cafe sort of came together. And then for the store part of this main space is I just placed a couple of retail shelves here that I stocked with some items. So I placed some shoes and some folded clothes, and then also some towels, which I was pretending to be, I was kind of in my mind, those were folded sweaters. I sometimes do that. I've done that recently. I think it was for my petting zoo build where I added a little merch store. I think I placed a few of those folded towels as well, and was definitely pretending for those to be folded sweaters. So that's what I went with for this one as well. So those are the only actual retail shelves in this build that are, I guess, functional in your business. Sims will go over to those and purchase the items on those shelves, but then the thrifty stuff from high school years was absolutely perfect for this. So I had to place a couple of those, or at least one of those tables that came with that pack with the folded clothes and everything, and like the vintage items. I don't think Sims can buy from that. It's just decorative, but it looks perfect. And then I also placed a couple of those clothing racks that I think are sort of half functional in a way where you can still use them to browse and put together outfits. So that's kind of fun to use anyway. And then here on the room off to the side is where I placed a couple of high tables with some bar stools. And I was pretending for this to be a little co-working space. It's sort of part of the cafe still, but in its own little area. And I love the pop of yellow for the wallpaper in here. I think that is such a pretty color, and it just lights up the room, it brightens it up, and it's just really, really nice. I can understand if that's not everyone's cup of tea, but I just love that color. I think it's so pretty. And yeah, I just placed some higher tables. I also used a couple of record players throughout this build. I just thought that that was super cute and just totally fit the vibe in here. The first idea for this actually was a record store slash cafe, but unfortunately we don't really have any loose record items aside from just an old crate filled with records from the basement kit. But other than that, we don't really have anything that could really resemble a record store. I mean, I feel like I could get creative with it and sort of figure it out, but I don't know. I was kind of brainstorming off of that idea, and then we just went for a vintage secondhand thrift sort of store. And I added some record players just for vibes and decorations. So yeah, that's what I ended up doing, and I think it looks really cute. Then we have a little hallway where I ended up placing a couple of bathrooms, obviously for functionality purposes. And then here off the side is where we have a very simple but, you know, functional employee only area. I love the wallpaper in here as well. The like dusty grayish pink I think is so pretty, and it just looks so good combined with the other colors that I used in here, which are all from businesses and hobbies. So everything ties together really, really nicely. Also, by the way, we're building in San Sequoia. I haven't even mentioned that at the beginning of the video. I'm so sorry. We're building in the world of San Sequoia, which is the world that came with Growing Together, and I have not built here in a very long time. I'm building this in the downtown-ish area in like the middle of the map on a lot right by the ocean, and it's just so pretty. And that's why I mean, for some reason, when I knew I was going to do the shell, I immediately had this specific lot in mind. I don't know why, but that's just kind of what came to mind for me. And I just really like the idea of a community lot on this one. It just feels like a little bit more of a commercial spot. It obviously doesn't have to be, but that's what it feels like to me. So that's what I went with for this one as well. And then after I'm done with the employee only area, we are moving on to the little 1-bedroom apartment upstairs. And for this one, I definitely really wanted to go colorful as well. I was trying to place like blue kitchen counters and cabinets, but it wasn't really working out. I'm already using that bright blue subway tile as a backsplash that I'm also using in the bathroom. And the blue counters, I thought it could be like a cool moment where just like everything is blue and that's just like a bold choice, but it just wasn't really working out. So I went with these like more honey wood colored counters and overhead cabinets as well, and that just pairs so nicely with that blue tile. I don't know, those colors, they just go together so well. And obviously I had to use the kitchen clutter items in here. I was so excited about using that fridge again. I just keep forgetting it exists for some reason, even though it's my favorite fridge in the game ever since they added it a little bit ago. And it's just so good with all the little post-its on it. It is so cozy. It instantly makes your kitchen look so much more lived in, and you don't even have to do anything about it. It's so good. So yeah, I had to use that. I placed some clutter on top of it as well. I also fully cluttered up the island counters, and then I left one counter free of decorations next to the fridge. Later on, I cut that out of the footage because it was a little bit too messy, but later on I actually added some more shelves there with clutter on it, like the little book nook book stack shelves, and I added some clutter to it, and those don't actually sit on the counter, they are shelves. So those should not be in the way of any cooking, but I'll obviously show you when I'm doing a tour of the build later on after the speed build. That was such a great tip from someone in my community when I was building this over on Twitch. Like, that was such a great tip. They were like, for the counters that you have to like leave empty for functionality purposes, I usually add those little book stacks and make them look like little cookbooks. And I just think that is such a genius idea. So I'll show you what I mean at the end of the video. But then over here, we also have a really small living room set up. This apartment, actually, as small as it is, layout wise, it still felt kind of spacious to me. Like, I had this like whole area here for a living room setup with 2 smaller couches. And then next to it, I was still able to fit a full dining table with 4 chairs as well. So that was really nice space-wise. So yeah, that really ended up working out. But then here for the living room, you can see that this is where I ended up using the balloon light. I'm just gonna call it a balloon light. I don't know what else to call it, but I feel like in this space, since it's already so playful color scheme wise, I really feel like it really does the space justice, and it just somehow really works in here. And it's kind of fun because I would have never picked that light by myself. Literally never. It would not come to mind. I would just skip over it and not even think about it. But it really works out in this space for the overall style of it. So that was kind of cool to have it work out that way. And then I was also pretending that the person living here, or the couple maybe living here, would have a dog, a small dog. So that's why I ended up placing a food bowl in the kitchen and also a little lemon dog bed here in the living room. The lemon swatch is so cute, and it ties into the yellow in the rug. I know it's not the same exact swatch or like shade of yellow, but it still kind of works. It still kind of ties in with the overall, I guess, colorfulness of this build. So yeah, that was really fun. And then also that light blue couch. I don't think I've ever used that light blue swatch of the love seat in here. And the little flowery love seat on the other side. It just worked out so nicely. And then in here, I'm using the same dining table that I used in the employee only area downstairs, but it just was such a good table shape wise that I couldn't pass on it. So I just decided to repeat it in this apartment as well. And I came across the kitchen clutter little paintings, and I had to swap one of those out because there's a couple of really good retro swatches for those. So I had to place one downstairs as well. And I placed a couple here in the apartment. And then for the living room table, I just cluttered it up with a couple of items. I was really trying to not go overboard with clutter because that can sometimes keep your Sims from actually sitting there and eating at the table. I didn't really do a good job though. Like, I still placed a bunch of clutter, and I feel like maybe it could still be too much, but it looks cute, so I did it anyway. And then I also ended up placing the fish bowl in the living room. So I had to sort of rearrange the clutter on the TV cabinet a little bit, but then I was able to place the fish there, and that looks so homey and so cute. And then here in the bedroom, oh, I love the color scheme that I used in here. The yellow bedding combined with the more, would you call this a forest green, or is this more of like a dark, like olive? Maybe it's a dark olive green. Combined with the yellow bedding is just so pretty. Combined with the like warm wood tones of the floor, it just all ties together so well. And I felt like creating a little shelf moment above the bed. I know that gives some people anxiety because what if those shelves fall down on your face when you're sleeping? Like, you don't want that. Thankfully, this is The Sims and those things don't really tend to happen, so we're good, but I can totally imagine that it brings or gives some people a little bit of anxiety. So you can obviously delete that if that's not your cup of tea. But then for the rest, the bedroom's kind of small. I ended up placing a wardrobe here in the corner, and then a chair in a really nice green color that doesn't really match the green on the wall, but I still felt like it was a really pretty color. And then I placed a yellow throw pillow to kind of tie everything back together. There's another bookcase in here and just a light and some other colorful decorations. And then the apartment actually has two really nice balconies. We have one out front here, and this furniture set, I'm not exactly remembering what kit it came with, but the side tables and the little stone bench, I think is from Oasis, Desert Oasis? I don't remember what that one's called, but that furniture just worked out really nicely for this one, so much so that I also placed it on the balcony in the back, which is where we have the staircase going up with the front door. So this is basically their, I guess you could say, their front porch, their front balcony. So I had a little bit more space there, so I placed another seating area and some flower boxes. And then I almost forgot to decorate the bathroom, so I quickly went back inside to decorate that, and I used all sleek bathroom items for this because I love sleek bathroom and I can never get enough of that kit. So I went ahead and used all items from the kit in the bathroom here, and it just makes it look so nice and modern and renovated. And it was just perfect for this apartment. Then downstairs we have a little outdoorsy area for the cafe, so a little terrace where I placed a couple of extra tables and chairs, like some extra seating. And then a cozy nook here in the back where I just placed a love seat and a coffee table. And then I had some space on the grass here that I was going to leave empty, but then I was like, maybe we should add a little picnic area. For functionality purposes, I feel like that could be really cute. So I placed a picnic blanket and then also a picnic basket and a table. And then that's essentially it. So let's jump into the game and I'll show you the build in real time. So here we have the build in the game. And this is the area of San Sequoia where I ended up building. So we literally have the ocean in the back and these nice like walkways. I don't know, I feel like this world is so pretty and this lot feels a little commercial to me. It doesn't have to be, but that's what it feels like to me anyway. I feel like the build looks definitely kind of retro, especially with that balcony and then those beams that I used. I used some half walls to create some planters and add some extra greenery to it. Around back here is where I placed a couple of cars as a pretend parking lot and also some bike parking. And then this is where we have the staircase going up to the apartment. There's some extra parking here out front, and then there's also sort of like a side entrance almost into the employee only area. So that's the door that I feel like employees would use. And then let's go inside. So the main door is over here and you essentially just enter straight into the cafe. The colors in here just are so calming to me, even though the yellow on the side here is very bright, but still like it feels so calming. So when you walk all the way to the back, this is where we have that store. These are the functional shelves with browsable, purchasable items, I guess you could say. There's a table over here that's just decorative and then some racks with clothing, and you can actually create fashion looks from them. So I think that's really cute. And then in the back here, of course, is the cafe area, which speaks for itself. On the side here is a co-working space. So this is very colorful. I placed some tables with laptops on them, some cups for decorations. But yeah, I was pretending that people would come here and get some work done maybe while enjoying their coffee. And then over on the other side is where we have a few bathrooms. So this really speaks for itself, but I do really like the green color combined with the pink in the hallway. So that's really nice. And then over here is the employee only area where I used this horrible chair. It is so bad, but unfortunately, it was a required item for the shell challenge, so I had to use it in here, and I feel like I'm still sort of getting away with it in the pink swatch. So the employees have a mini fridge and a microwave to just, you know, grab some lunch. Then when we use the staircase out back, this is where we have the entrance into the apartment. There's also some seating out front here and an outdoor bin. I thought that would be useful. But then when you first go in, you essentially just enter straight into the living room, which is super colorful, but still so cozy. I feel like it's not too overwhelming, but it's definitely a little cluttered. I also was thinking that the person living here would be a gamer, so I placed some comfy gaming kit items and also a little console over here. Obviously some entryway items as well, and then off to the side is the very cluttered kitchen. It's a little messy, which I personally think is really cute. And then this is what I meant by those book stacks. These are actually shelves, and they kind of look like stacked cookbooks, which I think is so cute, and that gave me the opportunity to place some extra clutter. So that's what I did. Off of the kitchen is where we have the bathroom, which really speaks for itself. It's kind of simple, but does look really pretty thanks to the items from this kit. And then over here is the yellow and green bedroom. I love the clutter on this shelf and that hanging plant, which is also from, or trailing plant, I should say, which is also from the sleek bathroom kit. And then the colors in here are so pretty. And they have a door to a front balcony over here. So I just placed some seating and also a nice higher table as well. But then that is actually it for this build. So this vintage store plus cafe is on the gallery as a residential, and then you can start your small business from home. I did go through and set all the rooms properly to either residential, employee only, or public. I'm not sure if that translates through the gallery, but it should. I'm not sure though, but you can always check. It has one bedroom and then I guess 3 bathrooms total, and it comes in at just under 104,000 simoleons. And I built it on a 30 by 20 in the world of San Sequoia, so if you want to place it in your game, then that's where it goes. But that's gonna do it for today's video, so I really hope that you enjoyed this one. You can obviously go ahead and download this build off the gallery like I just showed you. My username on the gallery is SimmerySims. You can follow me on Instagram if you'd like. My username on there is SimmerySims as well. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, feel free to do so, and if you'd like to get notified every time I upload a video, just click that little bell icon. I also live stream over on Twitch a few times a week, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and give me a follow over on twitch.tv/SimmerySims. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!